Hey, it's Carrie here, and thank you so much for joining me for another weekly dose of inspiration to help you to build a successful business. So the other week on the Facebook fan page, I posted out a tip of the day, and that tip was, don't be afraid to ask for help. And I think this is something that's so important in business. In fact, if it wasn't for this thing, I don't think I would have ever got to where I am today. Because when I started my first business, I had no idea what I was doing. And so the only thing I could do was ask for help. And then when I started the Female Entrepreneur Association, it was exactly the same thing. I had to find people that would be able to help me. I had to build my support network up of people that I could reach out to ask for help throughout my journey. So that is exactly what I did, and it's helped me so much. But on the Facebook page, I noticed that there was a lot of comments coming through from people saying things like, well, how do you find people to reach out to? Or if you do find people, how do you actually reach out to them? So in this episode, we are talking all about how to find the right people to reach out to and then how to actually reach out to them. And we are joined by Ashley Murray, who is the host of the podcast show She Founders. So Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Carrie. I'm excited to be here.
So I just want to tell everyone how this has all come about first, because it's quite interesting. So,
yes.
Right, so the other week, Ashley was interviewing me for her podcast show. And after the interview, we got talking and I was asking Ashley about how she got started with it all. And she began to tell me the story about how she managed to get John Lee Dumas, who is the founder and host of Entrepreneur on Fire, an amazing podcast show. Like, John is doing so well with it. If you don't know it, check it out. And she reached out to John and asked him to be her mentor. And I was so blown away by the story, and I thought it was so inspiring, because I just think more entrepreneurs need to be bold like that and just reach out for help. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, I have to have her on the show to share her story. So that's why you're now here, Ashley, to share your amazing story, because I just think it's so powerful, and you can tell your story so much better than I can. So can you share with us how that came about, how you ended up being mentored by John Lee Dumas?
Oh, definitely. So it is kind of a whirlwind of a story, but I'm so glad that I actually took the leap and went ahead for it. So I'm where I'm sure many of your listeners and audience are today, trying to figure out what it is that I'm supposed to do, what my mission in life is. And I'm listening to Entrepreneur on Fire. I've been reading, podcasting, you name it. I've just been binge motivation. And I'm so inspired by John and what he's been doing. And I think absolutely this is what I'm supposed to do, but I need to know this guy's tricks of the trade. So he's gotten quite popular, and he's not an easy guy to reach, but I figured, as you said, fortune favors the bold, so I had to do something. So I happened to be in San Diego working at the time, and I learned that John lives in San Diego. So I had done a bit of research about him, his story, where he was, and how he came to be, and I just figure I'm going to send an email asking if he would mentor me, or if nothing else, meet me for coffee. So I'm giving him two options. So I literally send him an email. It's quite bold. And I ask him in the subject line, will you be my Jamie Tardy? For those of you that don't know Jamie Tardy, she hosts another podcast called The Eventual Millionaire. And she actually was John's mentor. And I had learned that through my research. So I send this email. I expect a response from his virtual assistant telling me that he's way too busy and, simply appreciates my inquiry, but can't do it. And lo and behold, 30 minutes later, I get an email back from John, and he says, wow, Ashley, your email really caught my eye. I am not sure that I have the mental bandwidth to be a mentor right now, but let's at least meet for coffee. So I call in sick for work and meet John Lee Dumas for coffee an hour later, and he did become my mentor as time went on. So it was a really exciting time for me, and really does just show that if you're willing to ask for help, most likely someone's willing to give it.
It's just so powerful, and I love the fact that you just did that, and that you actually took the time to research about him, to find out about him, so that when you were emailing him it was relevant and that you would catch his attention. And
Absolutely.
Obviously now he has obviously been able to help you so much, so it clearly works. When you do reach out and you get help, it has such an invaluable impact.
Oh my goodness, so much so. It's been, and there's certainly a right way. You and I talked about this, Carrie. There's a right way, and I wouldn't say the wrong way, but a not as effective way to go about reaching out to people. And it's important that you do so.
Yeah, so what are the tips that you've kind of picked up on? What is the right thing to do when you are reaching out for help? Because there's so many people that just don't really know where to begin with it all, really.
Absolutely. And it can be intimidating, but I think it's really important to just remember that most people do want to help you, especially people in a space that you're trying to get into. People are really excited to share the knowledge and help someone really hedge that learning curve. So my tips would definitely be absolutely do your research. Know what that person has put out there. I think before I reached out to John, I learned that he had, a really short ebook on Amazon teaching someone how to launch a podcast. And it was $7, and $7 was in my budget. So I made sure that I picked that up and learned everything that he had to say in that ebook that he was offering before I asked for anything. So it's nice to do your research and know whom you're asking, what you're asking about. Certainly, if they have a product that you can afford, go for it. Check it out and see what you can learn from it. And then you have something to say in the email and really show your appreciation. That I think was huge when I reached out to John. I said, I've really looked into what you've done. You're absolutely inspiring me on a day-to-day basis. I want to learn from you. If you can't mentor me, can you at least meet me for coffee? So it was nice, I think, being able to give him 2 options. So do your research, be specific with your request, and absolutely just go for it. Fortune favors the bold, and worst case scenario, someone can say no or not right now, but you've absolutely put your name and your interest in that person's ear. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like with everyone I've ever reached out to ask for help, I've always researched them and then kept the email really short and to the point, but tried to make it as a to show my appreciation for them as much as possible. And it has always worked. Because one of the comments on the Facebook page was, well, people don't really just want to help free. But I know that I've had so much help for free, because when you approach people in the right way and you're going about it you don't want to just take. You are prepared to give as well and do what you can as well in return. And I think when you do that, people do want to help. And there's that saying, people love to be asked for advice, and I think more people should actually start trying it out and going out there and asking.
Absolutely. I think it's so important what you're saying also, that a lot of times, and what I've heard is someone says, well, I don't have much to give. They have all of this experience and all of this wisdom to embark on me, but I don't have anything to give. And that's absolutely not the case. We all have something to give. There's one of my favorite books says that no one really has it all together. Relationships, health and wellness, entrepreneurship, and money. We all have, very segmented parts to our lives that we really got figured out, but you can always help someone else.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. So one of the other things is finding the right people to reach out to. And I think it's really interesting. Obviously, you knew that you wanted to get into podcasting because John Lee Dumas had inspired you. So that's why you reached out to John Lee Dumas. And I think this is another really important topic, because so many of the comments coming in were around this, of how do you find the right people to reach out to? And so was that your strategy, because you saw John and you thought, I know he could help me, so I'm going to reach out to him?
It was a little bit of a combination. So I was really in this space where I knew I wanted to start something on my own, and I wanted it to be very much inspiration-based, but I wasn't quite sure. And if you would have asked me a year ago if I would have ever started a podcast, I would have laughed, because A, I don't like to hear my voice, and B, no, it never would have crossed my mind. But I think really just being open to the idea of anything and being able to have, these epiphanies allowed me to be much more open-minded. So then when I started really researching and opening my mind to podcasts and books and all of these different genres, it wasn't even so much that the podcast was the thing that I knew I was going to go for. It was hearing what John was doing, and that he was really inspiring people, and in a way that I had yet to hear about before. And I read something, I believe he was featured in some magazine. I don't want to say it because I know I'll mess it up, but he was featured, and he said, I didn't set out to make millions. I set out to inspire millions. And that resonated so much with me that I thought instantly, this is the guy that I want to talk to, because, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I have a barking dog. Because not only is he absolutely doing something that I think is amazing, but we clearly resonate and we clearly have very similar interests with what we hope to do with our lives. So if nothing else, I just wanted to know him as a person, but definitely get his experience with podcasting and his business.
I think that's really good as well, because I think that I came across an article recently and it was talking all about finding the right people to reach out to. And it was saying things like making sure, like, figuring out that knowing that you resonate with that person, going to look at what they do, look at what they write about or talk about, and seeing, like, is it something that you really connect with? And then it was talking about saying how if you wanted to learn, for example, about podcasting, then learn from or reach out to somebody who is already doing amazingly well at that. And I think that's so true as well. That's how you can find the right people to help you with your business. But I love all of those tips, and I just feel like your story is so powerful because you're just such a good example of what is possible when you do have the guts to reach out and ask for help. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So where can people find out more about your podcast show?
Definitely. So you can find us on iTunes. Also, the website is shefoundhers.com. And I've also put together something a little bit special. I will show you for your listeners and your audience. If you go to www.shefoundhers.com/FEA, I've got a little something that shows you really a template, essentially, of how to reach out to a mentor or someone that you're interested in speaking with. And I've also shared with you the exact template that I used and the exact email that I used reaching out to John. So hopefully that can help you. And if you have any other questions, you can always email me, Ashley@shefounders.com.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved all of those tips. And I would also really love to hear what you think about this. Is reaching out for help something that you've tried in the past? And if so, share your story and tell us how it helped you and any tips that you have. Head over to the blog and leave a comment, and I will see you next week for another dose of inspiration.